using these funds indeed to make them available to the research community to build resilience, healthcare capacities, and to invest in innovation. Belgium, for example, Prime Minister, was very happy to see is investing in a biotech school, or you're investing into research and development supporting the production of medical radioisotopes. So all this, taking the research capacities and joining them with the necessary funding, bringing it all together, all this helps us to prepare better for future health threats. And I think there is no better return on investment than that. Distinguished guests, this is our European way to do things, while of course repairing the damage of the crisis. We are investing in a better future. And it is great to see that with this biopharma platform you are creating today, you are also going in absolutely the same direction. So I count on Belgium to continue to drive European cooperation in the future. I count on Belgium by enriching EU programs, for example, like Horizon Europe. I count on you in engaging in our new HERA authority. And of course, I count on you by mobilizing your brilliant researchers and entrepreneurs. I especially welcome the ideas you develop in your strategy on how to address potential vulnerabilities in our supply chains. This is also a big topic. I will not go in depth, but this will be also a big topic at G20 this weekend in Rome, the summit. The supply chains that have been interrupted by the lockdowns and COVID pandemic all over the world, and we see now how difficult it is to bring them back in place. But what we also learn is our huge dependency on supply chains. So we have to look how to diversify our supply chains, how to strengthen them. I'm not talking the word to only onshoring them. That's not the solution. But to be more diverse in the supply chains, to have a strategic reserve that is here on the continent, but also to be able to strengthen our supply chains, that will be one of the big lessons we have to learn from this pandemic. So I want you to know, as I've looked at the concept of this platform, that whatever you plan also regarding the supply chains from strategic stockpiles to the ramping up of the local production, rest assured that you have the full support of the European Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, extending our positions as leading biopharma hubs will bring benefits to all. Patients get a higher quality of care. They get an easier access to innovative therapies. The economy gets a boost, as we will attract not only the funding I was just describing, but of course also international investment. And our society at large benefits from this tightly woven network you have of research institutes and enterprises. We are in this together. A strong Belgium makes our union stronger, and a strong union makes Belgium stronger. So let's get to work. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You put a lot of ambition, European ambition on the table. Team Europe will invest, ladies and gentlemen. And also 70% of the global population should be vaccinated by the end of next year. Also beautiful words for our country, where you said that the European vaccination strategy wouldn't have been possible without Belgium. And this specific ecosystem that exists in our country, ladies and gentlemen, is also important for the industry. It makes from Belgium a critical country, for instance, for GSK. And Emma WALMSLEY, the CEO of GSK, tells us why. Look with me.
Dear President of the European Commission, beste meneer de Eerste Minister, et chers membres du gouvernement belge. I am so privileged to make a few remarks at this important panel. Thank you for the opportunity. Belgium is a critical country for GSK. We employ 9,000 staff here, mostly in research, development, and manufacturing. We have a 70-year history of investing in this great country. Belgium is right at the heart of our vaccines business. Our R&D site in Rixensart actually gives its name to most of our vaccines. They end in Rix. We also have a very substantial manufacturing operation in Wavre. All of our vaccines are important because they protect millions of children and increasingly adults each year. Now, something very close to my heart is our newest vaccine for malaria, Mosquirix. This is a world first that earlier this month was recommended by the WHO for rollout in Africa. This really was a milestone day that I will always remember, because when this vaccine is distributed, it will save tens of thousands of lives. So I hope that you are as proud as I am of this fantastic Belgian invention that's being manufactured just down the road from this meeting. GSK has invested significantly in Belgium, and we are highly dependent on our Belgian teams to deliver our global vaccines ambition, which is at the very core of the success of GSK as a whole. Our success in Belgium is the result of a strongly performing biopharma ecosystem. We need this to be able to thrive as a business, and it is so reassuring that today all stakeholders are united on how we can further strengthen our sector through the bio platform. Now, without doubt, the most critical factors that support GSK's investment in Belgium are the competitive fiscal environment for innovation, coupled with the strong skills base that allows us to recruit world-class talent. Looking forward, our Belgian sites will continue to play a crucial role within our global network. We're investing in technology to support future growth, to remain competitive, to innovate, and to meet global demand. So thank you, and I look forward to a continued dialogue.
Well, that was a clear message. Time for the first panel discussion on what Ms. van der Leyen called 10 minutes ago the vaccines powerhouse. So what is this ecosystem? So please welcome on stage those people. Jean-Christophe Tellier, CEO of Biopharma Group UCB, Fiona du Monceau, COO of spin-off company Exavir Bio, Pierre Van Damme, Professor and Vaccinologist of the University of Antwerp, and Vincent Van Peteghem, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. Well, be seated whatever and wherever you like. I still have to. Pierre Van Damme. You're not afraid of me, are you?
No, not at all.
Well, there's
also
no
not
need.
The reason why I was late.
Oh, okay, good. That's settled then. Mr. Tellier, I will start with you because we were talking about this unique ecosystem. What makes us in this unique position? Can you untangle that a little bit?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for the opportunity. And as Prime Minister de Croo said earlier, the situation here in Belgium we are benefiting from is not new. It has been for a long years now that have been decided that the biopharmaceutical environment would be a priority for the government. And the stability of this priority has been very, very strong. And I think we benefit from that. So we start with a situation of strength. And I think this is very important to recognize. The environment is very strong. There are a few elements which I think are critical for this environment if we want to continue to benefit and to be at the edge of other countries and competitions potentially. One is the ability to continue to create an environment that supports innovation. We are in an industry by nature that are focusing on innovation, right? I mean, it's very important. Without innovation, we will not be here, most likely, right? So how to continue to protect, to invest, to create an environment that supports innovations is very critical. The second element is the people. I think the ability to count on best talent are really critical. The proximity of the university, of hospitals, of business, of financing, all of that together. The quality of the people, the training, the ability to provide career development are so important. So that's the second element. And the third one I would mention is the collaborations between all of the different stakeholders. We are in an environment which is very much volatile. They change very quickly. And so if we want to continue to be at the edge of the progress, we need not only to make sure that each of the contributions continue to be at the best of possible, but we need to make them working together. And this ability to work, to collaborate, to create partnership, public-private partnership, proximity between biotech and science, proximity between science and the patients are very critical. So these are the areas which are highlighted by the report, which I think will continue to make Belgium the success environment that we know today.
Mr. Van Damme, I understand that it's a mixture of everything. It's not one element, it's the whole of it. So it's no coincidence that we have this, that we are this vaccination house, I would say. How do you look at this mix? How important is that?
Well, I think two things I heard this morning, and good morning everyone, is first of all, Ms. von der Leyen spoke about the enabling environment. I think that is really key and makes us doing what we can do. And the second thing I heard from the Prime Minister is connecting the dots. And that's where we come. So we have indeed the industry, we have the biotech, we have the universities with a tremendous good educational program in Europe, and I think that is key as well. And then we have the policymakers and the agencies that are very helping. We have seen that with COVID-19. I think you need everyone within the country, but also outside the country to collaborate. If I look at what the federal agency, the regulatory agency did in terms of reviewing quickly, within the deadline, more than 500 dossiers so that clinical trials could start in this country. This is amazing. This was the same number as in 2019. So that illustrates that everything kept on working, running, even though there was a crisis, and we were able to do so. And more than 34 dossiers were on COVID-19, in particular on vaccines. And that's bringing me to your question. We have indeed this industry, we have the research, we have the ecosystem. We have a network of clinical trial centers in Belgium, specialized also in vaccine trials, and we know Belgium has been instrumental in doing these trials. And then we have the agency who did a lot of work, not only in Belgium, reviewing these dossiers, but also doing a lot of work at the level of rapporteur and co-rapporteur in Europe. And I think everyone knows now the quality of this agency within Europe. That brings us at a higher level.
Ms. du Monceau, a similar question, because you're working for a clinical stage company. It's a spin-off. You work together with a VIB. So what I heard Mr. Tellier said also, it's important that you work together. How did you do that? That was a very important part for you, I think.
Yeah, so Elsevier really exists based on the innovation, and it's a case example of, I'm sure lots of other biotechs are going to recognize themselves in this story, but thanks to the VIB who actually pre-immunized a llama a few years ago, so way before the pandemic hits. So the innovation that we have in our universities and entities like the VIB who really ensures that that what's being worked on is also something that one day could become a product. So we had the VIB. The VIB reached out to UCB, who very quickly made a slot available. Fund Plus took the lead in the financing, reached out to people, so people like me, Trosten, who's in the room, as well as the VIB reached out to Dominique. So very quickly, the three of us jumped in. We're lucky in Belgium to be surrounded by people with a lot of experience who were willing to support, whether it's through consultancy or advice. And then we have a lot of talents in Belgium. I think there's more we can do there. If you take sort of the Boston example, we're at a great step, but there's much more that we can do there because people need to be ready to jump, take the risk, join a biotech, knowing that actually you're going to learn a lot. And you'll have the opportunity, whether it goes well or not, to then jump on the next. But that's still something our talent pool can improve. But the fact that we have this ecosystem where you have academics, big companies like UCB, J&J, Pfizer, and GSK, you have opportunity to tap into a pool that's got global experience as well as local experience, and I think that's really important.
Working together with a big company, which is enabled by the VIB, is very important for spin-offs, I understand.
Yeah, and the fact that we also have because of the big companies, you have suppliers that come. Small companies can tap into those suppliers. And the more we create biotechs and have big companies, the more expertise comes here into Belgium.
Mr. Van Peteghem, is this how we should work more according to the VIB model, I would say? How do you look at this ecosystem that we have?
Well, let's say that we are really, and good morning as well to everybody, of course, let's say that we are really known for our excellence, for our research and development in the world, and we should keep it that way. We have indeed very good hospitals. We have excellent researchers, excellent universities. They're working together with all these great companies, and that's also, of course, mainly due to our good educational system, but also, of course, to the way how we are supporting research and development with our tax system. We not only support human capital, we also invest in the investments, or we support also the investments that are done, and we are also supporting the output of the research and development via, for example, our patent box. So that toolbox that we have available, that is really helping us also moving forward and being excellent in research and development, and also becoming or came in a position where other countries look at our and really envy us about the situation we're in. Well, that's actually something we should focus on and work on in the future as well, because that really gives us that strategic advantage for our country in that ecosystem.
Ms. du Monceau, this local approach also makes this tech transfer more possible, better. How can we improve that?
Well, I think the more people are connected, and I think that's what's great about Belgium, because we're a relatively small country, so everyone sort of is open to talk to everyone. I think the more we can expand models like the VIB across the country and get people working quicker together. I mean, we were fortunate in a pandemic, people all jump in. I mean, in our case, we didn't even have contracts in place when everyone started working together. Those came way later. But in non-pandemic sort of situations, you want that to continue, that sort of exchange of ideas, connecting people, helping each other out, and sharing ideas.
Same question, Mr. Tellier. How can we take the next steps in this whole process of local approach?
I think that sometimes we underestimate the complexity of the end-to-end management of the whole value chain. And we think that sometimes we are very good at certain part of it and it will be sufficient and the rest will get together naturally. But it's not so easy to detect the element where there will be potential leakage that will suddenly can stop an innovation. Yeah. So innovation...
Who should do that? Who should detect that one?
Well, and as Fiona said, in a sense, the ability to work together, it's not so natural. And yes, there are competition in other countries. But what other countries have not done, they don't have the 20 years that we have here of creating this environment, creating this ability to get to know each other and to get projects together and to work together. Because it's by experience that you create the trust, and it's with the trust that we can really truly innovate, and through innovations understanding that we need to bring innovation from the bench to the patient. And we mentioned earlier the importance of the supply chain. Very often supply chain is perceived as secondary, right? Because if we have the innovation, that we have everything. Well, it's not really the case. If you don't have the supply chain, everything is important. So detection of leakage, understanding the complexity of this end-to-end, and ability to make sure that people are truly working together and not finger-pointing each other to say who blame or who are not doing the job. I think we have a strong experience of that here in Belgium, the collegiality, the openness, the ability to really create platforms of working together should be for Belgium the best strength for the future.
One of the key elements is also our universities, high schools, we heard about that before, but also the funding is very important. How do you look at that, Mr. Van Damme?
Well, absolutely. I think and I fully agree with the Minister, but of course we recently heard that in Flanders the research funding will be reduced by 100 million euros, so we have to be very creative to find solutions for ongoing research, for the fundamental research, for the applied research, and we all can go for the full chain. I think that is important also what I hear here. From the ecosystem that exists, you can start from a molecule, you can go to the industry, but you need funding to move on. And the same is valid for the universities. So we are very happy that the Belgian government supported recently a number of initiatives like Vaccinopolis and like also the virus bank at the Rega Institute. Vaccinopolis, I still have mud on my shoes, sorry for that. But I visited the construction site yesterday, and this is, I think, visionary. And I think it's also very important that Europe understands that we start to have this facility where we can do human challenge studies, testing monoclonal antibodies on the one hand, testing vaccines on the other hand, so that you can save time and accelerate, in fact, the whole process. The idea is also to work in the direction of predictive medicine, trying to predict how your vaccine will work in a certain population. We have seen with COVID-19 that some people, the efficacy reduces at a certain age. If you know that in advance, you can work on that, you can work proactively on that and avoid this. So I think this is for the future a very important move.
Yeah, so I understand also this funding is very crucial. So show us the money and we have the right person in the right place. We have our minister.
Right.
So what are the next plans?
That was the reason why I was late.
And did you find the money?
Well, let's say that we already give, of course, these tax incentives. I can, of course, give the whole list of everything that we do, and I'm sure that we need to make sure that they are future-proof as well, because, of course, there are new technologies that need to be supported, and the way how we are going to do that is also crucial. What I see today as a big challenge is to be sure that we find the link between the finance needed by the researchers and the way how private companies or private investors are also helping these companies, because I've understood well that in that whole project cycle that in some steps it's very difficult to get funding. Well, then we also need to find and maybe also support and give also maybe some fiscal incentives to the investors to invest in especially these steps in that project cycle. Belgium itself, with its Federal Holding and Investment Company, the FPIM, SFPI, is also investing in life sciences. Almost 10% of our whole portfolio is also invested in this kind of investments. So I really think that as a federal government, we are supporting through the tax incentives, but also through the investments we do ourselves. But more importantly, and that will also be crucial in the future, is of course that link between the private and public investments and how we can stimulate that in the good direction.
Yeah. You're not investing in it because of the beautiful eyes of Mr. Tellier or Van Damme. Of course, you have a reason, because the sector is very important for the economy as well. Perhaps you can elaborate a little on that one.
Well, of course, we need to be sure that our country remains attractive for this kind of companies. We have done that in the past. We also need to do that in the future, in the near future, and of course also, as the Prime Minister said, in the coming 10 to 20 years. So that means that if we want to remain the leader or become the number one in the world in innovation, also in biopharma and other sectors, we also made it a cluster of the future for our country, the sector. So that means that we also need to invest in it and have a long-term strategy. And that long-term strategy, that's what we are working on today. Of course, not only as a government, not only looking to politics, we also have to do it together with the researchers and with the companies. And that's our goal, that's the start point that we have today, to develop that long-term strategy that makes us the research and development and innovation leader in the coming years as well.
Mr. Tellier, you're looking with a global perspective. How important is this for our image abroad? How are they looking at us in Belgium?
Well, it's very important. It's very important, and as you're absolutely right, you know, each of us, we are looking globally to see when we take decisions where will be the best location for these decisions to be implemented. For example, in our case, we have decided to invest in a new manufacturing site for monoclonal antibody. And we put in competitions other areas like the UK or the US, as well as Belgium and Switzerland. And we have decided in the end to put our site here in Belgium. We are investing 300 million. We are creating 150 new jobs here. So the decision here is of course, in an environment which is by nature global. However, there is also a kind of a snowball effect. I think if there is the appropriate environment, if there is the predictability, if there is the stability of the environment, the stability of the tax incentives, and if the different components are there, that create a competitive advantage. Another area which also can maybe illustrate that is the future platforms. There is also a very important element to take in consideration. Science is booming right now, right? Before, creating new medicine for patients was only the outcome of one type of platforms or technology. Now there are many of them. If you take gene and cell therapy, for example, it's a promising platform for the future. But it's also very different from the past. You know, from the past, manufacturing site can be located in a different place than where you put research together. Gene therapy, the manufacturing site is critical and strategic. It's part of the product itself, so you need to do it together. So science and manufacturing are there together. It's not that you can put science somewhere and then you out-license or you put manufacturing on the other side. It's not working like that anymore, so integration of that. Co-location is also important. I mean, we are creating a new center of gene therapy in Leuven, just an example. Why we are putting there? Because there is the research, there is the patients, there is the proximity, there is a strategic interest. Yeah. So by co-locating people there, they can really work together. And this is possible in Belgium.
Ms. du Monceau, you're working for a spin-off that wants to conquer the world. How do you see it? How important is this image for you as a spin-off when you go abroad?
Well, I think Belgium is recognized as a place where there's a lot of innovation. And also, if you look at the history, in our case, we're an infectious disease, which is not as sexy as oncology. But if we look at the history in Belgium, I mean, there were many medicines that were created where it's HIV, etc. So I think the recognition that innovations coming out of Belgium are many, and a lot of them are very robust and lead to medicines that reach patients. So I think that's one. We've got recognized funds. I think there we can progress because we've got great sort of seed investors with Series A, but we don't yet have like a lot of European countries like the Netherlands, etc., like a growth fund. And then the talent is very much recognized in Belgium, that it's a spirits.
Okay, we are very brief in time, so I'm going to do a last round. What's a key message that we should take from this debate, from your point of view?
Well, from my point of view, I want to come back to something that is said before, is that it's very important that there is enough legal certainty for the companies that are going to invest in our country. And that's, I think, is my main responsibility of Minister of Finance, to give that legal certainty, that rules are not changing from one day to another, but that companies, if they invest, that they know what they can expect from the government as well. And that's something that I think is important part of that strategic vision we have on this.
So I understand that's your
my responsibility.
I have written it down. Okay, Ms. du Monceau.
I'd say it's a combination of innovation, talent, connectivity, and funding.
The mixture that you can find
and bringing
here.
it together.
Mr. Van Damme.
I think we should profit from the concentration of all these talents in one country and learn a lot from COVID-19 to be better prepared for the future.
Okay, take the lessons from the crisis.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Tellier.
Well, everything has been said.
Sorry.
So if no, it's okay. I will try to be innovative. I will say three, maybe three things. Positive, creating a positive environment. Partnering, making sure that we are able to work together, and predictability.
Okay, being innovative on the spot, that's a talent. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Give them a warm round of applause, this beautiful panel. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is clear that the future will look totally different, and Belgium cannot afford to stand still. Someone who does agree on that one is the chairman and CEO of Pfizer. Please listen with me, Albert Bourla.
President von der Leyen, Prime Minister De Croo, ministers of the Belgian federal government, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today, but I do appreciate the opportunity to address this important gathering. By combining Pfizer's industry-leading vaccine development, manufacturing, and distribution capabilities with BioNTech's expertise in innovative mRNA technologies, we were able to make the seemingly impossible possible, delivering in less than a year a breakthrough COVID-19 vaccine. We now expect to manufacture 3 billion doses of our COVID-19 vaccine worldwide in 2021, and at least 4 billion in 2022. This would not have been possible without Pfizer's incredible production team in Tours, which has been at the heart of our global manufacturing efforts. Managing our largest site of its kind in Europe, they have been moving at the speed of science to scale up production at an unprecedented rate. This should come as no surprise, given Belgium's strong life sciences ecosystem. In 2018, the sector generated 13.3 billion euros in revenue and employed almost 40,000 people. Belgium cannot afford to stand still. However, the sector's innovation pipeline is accelerating, and global competition for investment is intensifying. By embracing new ways of working developed during the pandemic and leaving old orthodoxies behind, Belgium can achieve its ambitious goals for life science sector. Pfizer stands ready to play its part, and I look forward to seeing the outputs from the bioplatform discussions. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's clear Belgium cannot afford itself to stand still because other countries are investing and developing new ways of working as well. So, and that's why we have this second panel discussion on how can we accelerate all this. So please welcome on stage Dermine, State Secretary for Economic Recovery, Sonja Willems, Strategic Director of Johnson & Johnson, Hughes Bultot, Founder and CEO of Universals, and Mark Lupkeman, Managing Director and Senior Partner of BCG Boston Consulting Group. Welcome. Well, Mr. Dermine, perhaps I start with you because unlocking all talents will be one of the main focuses that we will need. How can a government help in this one?
No, I think you mentioned it in your introduction. I believe the COVID-19 crisis will have some kind of kiss-cool effect on Belgian ecosystem. On the one hand, we do realize in the crisis that we have something very unique in Belgium in this ecosystem. But on the other side, other countries, which often have a scale advantage on Belgium, also realize the need and urgency to have such an ecosystem. So a strategy like the one we have today is really needed to take the word of Mr. Tellier, to have this kind of positive snowball effect and to build on the 20 plus years expertise we have. And what's very clear is that talent, it has been mentioned by a lot of members of the former panelists, is one of the advantage we have today, but is also one of the challenge for tomorrow. So one of the key initiatives we have launched in the next generation plan that has been mentioned by President Van Damme is the EU Biotech School. It's a public-private initiative where public stakeholders come together with private partners to say, look, in Belgium, now that we are moving also in biomanufacturing, we will need more talents than ever. So basically, how can we join forces to make sure we have the right tools to train and to retrain workers and to make sure that local workforce also benefit from the development of the industry.
Sonja Willems, how do you look at this European Biotech campus? Is that the good way to go?
Absolutely. I think, as many have
said it before, we do have very good people in Belgium, but we do see that we need to accelerate the entrance into STEM directions and also... Not working? All right. So we need to make sure that the talents we have really get into the STEM directions much better, and also that upskilling and reskilling of our existing talent pool is also very important. So I think very focused initiatives like the Biotech campus in WALMSLEY is absolutely wonderful, and is definitely what we need in Belgium, absolutely.
We also know that a lot of young people want... We also know that a lot of young people want to make a difference. They want a job where they can mean something. And with COVID-19...
Can the cameras be turned off now, please?
I see a Me Too event just in front of me. Sonia, when I have to do something, you have to say so. Is it okay? Can you manage? Yeah, good.
Is coming in?
I go on. Mr. Lupkeman, what do you think about this idea for European Biotech Campus?
I think it's a fantastic idea, and everybody has spoken about the strengths, but just let me tell you a story. In 1980, I was going to university in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I was robbed in East Cambridge in daylight. It was in this abandoned warehouse, falling down. Nobody goes there. It was very unsafe. 1980. Right now, that's the site where Novartis Institute of Biologic Research is built. And now, in 1 square kilometer in East Cambridge, you have hundreds of biotech companies and billions of dollars being spent. So that, and really it took about 30 years. So the 20 years of trust that you have give you a good running start. Not too many abandoned warehouses, thankfully. But it just shows how long it takes to make things happen. And it is a matter of leveraging all the strengths and having time, but also recognizing, and I think you mentioned that, Mr. Tellier, the world isn't standing still, right? Everybody is moving rapidly. I spent most of my time on the west coast of the US, where San Francisco was the biotech hub, and San Diego. Now the center of action is really in Cambridge, Mass. So even within the US, being competitive is important. So I think there's tremendous strengths, but what is really needed is that competitive drive and that decision-making and attracting investment so that you can pull it all together with a purpose.
We need to invest, we need to attract, we need to be ambitious. I think this is on the table today. Mr. Bultot, you wanted to make biologics available for all. How are you unlocking all talent with your company?
So it's really easy. So
it's easy.
No, it's easy.
The egg of Columbus.
We have the most attractive ecosystem in Europe.
How so? How come?
Because of the success of our predecessor, the big industry, because the successes of our colleagues from Flanders, quoted companies like Galapagos, like Argenix, and also the success of GSK. So easy to attract. I remember my partner, José Castillo, gave a call just 5 years ago. We were 10 in Russia to attract a guy that lasted only 2 hours. And the guy left his fiancée, told her, I will be back. I will be back. I will be back. But there is something important, biologics for all. I will be back, don't worry. And indeed, they are now married. They live in Nivelles, and they are both employed by our company. So we do not underestimate the attraction of this wonderful country. I mean, Brussels is a nice place. Wallonia is a nice place. Flanders is a very, very nice place. So it's easy.
I keep in mind also that Universals is a very dangerous company to work for because when you don't want to have divorcees all the way. Are they divorcing for your company as well, Sonia?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Okay.
Yeah. But it does need continuous effort, and that's why we're so happy with the initiative, because it has been said we have a very strong base, but world is...
Yeah, you have to...
Okay, so this still doesn't work, sorry. We have a strong base, but we need to continue to strengthen it. And we saw that in, for example, the decision to build our first state-of-the-art cell therapy site in Ghent.
where at the end we were successful, but mainly because indeed the collaboration and the co-creation of all the elements in the ecosystem. So it was quite an internal challenge because then you have to compete with countries that have the scale or who have much better stories. So you really have to, you need the support of all the governments, which we got. You need the support of the entire ecosystem, which we got. And of course we have the footprint so that our own expertise in research and manufacturing helped us. But you need everything, and you need everything to collaborate to really make those decisions positive for you in the country.
Yeah. All noses in the same direction.
Yeah.
I was asking you the question before when the guy was doing some things with your jacket. I was asking, well, with this COVID-19, you showed that a job in the sector can make a difference, and that's what young people want.
Yeah.
Do you profit enough of that crisis? Do you use that enough to show this is the image of the sector?
Well, I think we do, yes or no, and no. We have already, also as Janssen, been quite fortunate attracting talent because of the footprint and the reputation. But I still feel, and I think all of us are suffering from that, there's still a big population, then I'm thinking about girls and women, who don't naturally go into STEM directions because they feel they can't do it. They don't have the skills for it, or the communication around STEM directions is too masculine. They don't feel attracted towards that. So I think we really need to communicate differently about what STEM is, the SDGs, that you can really make an enormous difference to the world if you can really, get into our sector and do what you're good at. And we do feel that young people are very much motivated by SDGs, sustainability, and the impact we have on the world. And it has been said before, I think our sector in Belgium has had an enormous impact on the world, not only on Belgium and on Europe, but on the world. And I think we need to find the right words and the right motivations to get young people more inclined to go that way, including girls and females.
Yeah, Mr. Dermine, we have to work on our communication. Are there other ways, innovative ways of out-of-the-box thinking to go forward?
Well, I would see three avenues for the future. On the attracting young people, and especially female young people, I think what we should do is much more open the doors of the lab. I mean, we do amazing things.
Yeah, that's easily said, but how do you do that?
Promotion and you must start very early on and to say, look, by the way, you're not working for pharma sector. You are inventing the future of how to save life. And the way we should communicate very early on is very important. Second avenue is to go from invention to production. I think that in Belgium we are a world leader or European leader in terms of invented in Belgium. But today the made in Belgium must be also very important. And we see very important developments, for example, in with many companies moving into biomanufacturing. But it's also very important because we know that research can be moved away very easily, but activities in production are much more anchored because the capital investment is higher. So it's also very important. And the third layer is to really develop our training and retraining capabilities, because we know that it's not only a challenge to attract talent, but it's going to be a challenge to retrain talent in the future, because we know that the technologies are going to evolve very rapidly. So if we will to keep on to have the same workers in the industry, we must invest heavily in those skills.
Perhaps we should work also more on cross-border, cross-level cooperation. How should we do that?
Well, I think many of what I would call sort of the table stakes in terms of having a predictability of the legal and regulatory environment are extremely important. I think capital and talent are increasingly global, and so how do you make that most attractive? For investors, it's by providing attractive returns. Mm-hmm. So you provide attractive returns, you get more capital. And I think the challenge is, for all of the various inputs and strengths that Belgium has and the many success stories, how do you scale that up to create a virtuous cycle of investment, more capability building, more opportunities for people to have purpose and perpetuate that.
Yeah.
But that requires leadership.
Yeah. And we do not have that?
I don't know. I don't know, but it requires leadership. And I think the...
Excuse me, Prime Minister. I had to ask that.
Yes, you do, Alexander.
Well, but he is your minister. I'm just a journalist. Well, okay, but same question perhaps, Mr. Bultot. COVID-19 showed us very well that we need co-creation as well. How do we do that? Because it needs not only a leadership, it needs also, well, you have to trust each other, and you cannot do it alone. COVID-19 showed us that very well. How do you do that?
So it's a very, very collaborative industry. That's why with my very special background, I'm a criminologist and lawyer by education, that's why I choose biotech.
Because theme with your company.
No, but biotech is a wonderful place when you consider collaboration.
I think I will come to work for you because it's a really strange company.
You're more than welcome. But imagine, we have been able to attract the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation based on a collaboration agreement. We have worked with the best scientists, the best technologists in the world. So that's really exciting. Again, Belgium is a nice place. They come and visit us. We show them our capabilities. It's really exciting. And my objective with my business partner is really to feel the excitement of exporting our ecosystem around the world. I remember when we were exporting tramway in the 20s. That should have been exciting. So no, we want to replicate that for the future, and that's why we have started to try to export the Belgian ecosystem in Senegal, and we have been elected thanks to our very good collaboration with the Gates Foundation, the Soros Foundation, the different governments. We have been elected as the company to deploy the future vaccine manufacturing facility in Senegal, and I'm really proud to be Belgian because we are indeed considered as a land of compromise, but we are certainly also the country of collaboration, of fruitful and effective collaboration.
Sonja Willems, you are known as a big fan of this cooperation between the regions. Why is that? How do you look at it?
Well, I think it is the next step because I often say collaboration is great and we need it, and it has been said before. But to me, the next step is co-creation because collaboration is still what I call an inside-out. You have your objective, you know where to go, and then you assemble people around you who can help you get there. For me, co-creation is really a structural collaboration with active participation, which means that a number of parties go together, they design an objective together, they put all of their expertise on the table and they work their way towards together. And I think with the 20 years we already have behind us, Belgium is quite unique because we are ready for that. We trust each other, we know each other, so we are ready to really, with the ambition that we now have in the plan, to just sit together, be ambitious in our goals and work our way towards that together. And to me, that is quite unique. You see a lot of ecosystems, starting, being invested in heavily. But it's all about the basics. It's if people don't know each other, don't trust each other, haven't been working together. So I think we have a unique basis to really take the next step and to really make a difference for the country, across regions, but also for humanity and for patients worldwide.
Mr. Dapkeman, we have a great ecosystem, but we need to be more disruptive to take the next steps. What do we need to do?
Well, I think the BCG report that we just did with the Belgian government, which you can access through the QR code, lays out a good approach. I think there's a couple of key points. Unlock the potential of the healthcare data that exists within Belgium, and really build more of an end-to-end solution. You mentioned how hard it is to create an end-to-end solution, but that's really what's required. Now, that involves a multiple alignment of multiple stakeholders, so there needs to be, again, some objective and purpose to all this collaboration, right? Collaboration is good, but without a purpose, it's just pleasant, right? So what is going to drive real progress, I think, is going to be very important. And I think that will create more opportunities for people in Belgium and from outside to invest in Belgium.
I'm going to do the same as in the first panel. The key takeaway, Mr. Dermine.
Well, I will maybe make a comment which is a bit bold, but I think that we need much more concentration in our public policy, industrial public policy.
Explain that a little bit, because it's a key takeaway.
No, we know. You asked me to be short. So, what's unique about this industry is that it's equally strong in the south and in the north of Belgium. It's pretty unique, actually, if you think of the industrial pattern in Belgium. B, we know that today it's a global competition for talent, for capital, and for innovation. C, we know that Belgium is a small region. Actually, you made the reference with Boston. Actually, if you take the greater Boston area, it has roughly the size of Belgium. So actually, if we want to keep on being relevant in the world, in the industry, we must concentrate the efforts. And in Belgium, we don't have the luxury to dilute our policy focus into many, many industries. We have a few areas where we know that we are globally renowned. Bio and pharma is definitely one. We should concentrate the effort that we do at federal level, at regional level, in order to keep on the ball rolling and to have this positive snowball effect and to reconvert our warehouse that we do have in some part of Belgium into the next factories of the future.
Okay. With that, you did a little bit. Piet Huizentruid is a very, very famous cook that we have in Flanders, and every single emission on television he ends. What do we have learned today? 1, 2, and 3. So only one key takeaway, Sonja.
Okay, I want to add, or I want to build on that, because I do think from today we have the leadership. I fully agree with that. But what I also think is very important is ambition. Focus, as has been said, but in that focus and in that clear direction, which is there now, is being ambitious and stop being low profile and being the underdog in the world because we're so small. We are unique, we're extremely strong. Let's be ambitious and really put our goals sky high and work together to make it work. If there's one region, if there's one country that can make it work, it's Belgium.
Wow, very clear message. I come to you, Mr. Bultot.
I will plea for the segment of the industry I'm representing, so the biomanufacturing. I think that with our colleagues from GSK, G&G, UCB, and Pfizer, we can certainly create a paradigm shift in the world so that indeed not only the developed countries will have access to vaccines in a period of 24 months, but also all the world.
I believe really you when you say that you are going
Belgium
to make a paradigm
that.
shift. That's for sure. Lupkeman.
I'll go back to leadership. There's so many strengths and capabilities. There's so much to build on. There's a great track record. Who's going to drive this forward and convene the stakeholders and make things happen? Okay. There's lots of good papers, lots of good PowerPoint slides. You need to make things happen.
And with those wise words, we can end this panel discussion. Thank you very much. Give them a warm round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, we've heard a lot, we've seen a lot of vision, heard a lot of ambition, and it all comes down to leadership. And to elaborate more on the project that is in front of us, I ask you to welcome and clap your hands for the Prime Minister once again, Alexander De Croo.
Thank you. I was slightly surprised because I think Mr. Van den Broeke still had to make a video statement, but he will come after me then. That's not an issue at all. Please don't quote me on this. Though looking at the amount of cameras around the room, I guess we'll have to solve this later. So I have to say, first of all, amazing what we have seen here. Just with a few people which were on stage. I mean, the amount of know-how, enthusiasm, and ambition, I think really shows what we have in Belgium. And this is just a few people, but we have hundreds of these. And maybe I would like to use the occasion to summarize a few elements, and then to also give you an idea of the direction which we should be going. I think it's been quite clear that the position we have in Belgium is quite unique. And an attractive position like this, this is not by accident. Success is often not by accident. Sometimes it happens by accident, but here this really was a result of deliberate choices which have been made over the past decades, choices which were the result of some some public government-type decisions. Also the result of personal ambition and some people in the private sector who really have made some choices to invest in Belgium and to stay in Belgium and really continue to develop what we have here. And also the possibility to attract people. We've often talked about the Belgians, but the Belgians have also been quite good at attracting people from other countries to come here. And obviously, we have so much more to offer than diamonds, beers, and French fries. And I have to say that our diamonds and beers and French fries are excellent. But too often when we present ourselves abroad, we tend to focus on that. And there's nothing wrong with talking about that, but honestly, we have so much more to offer. We are a country of innovation. We are a country of high-tech, and we are a country of biotech. And this event is about biotech. But if you would have the same event about semiconductors, we could almost make exactly the same story when you would be talking about an industry which is different, but maybe also not that different after all, but that's not the topic of today. Now, what I say here of the attractiveness of Belgium in biopharma, for you in the room, this is not new. I mean, otherwise you would not be sitting in this room. But to the general public, this has been quite a discovery. I mean, if you would ask the general public, where would we be sitting if Belgium would not have played the role that it's played over the last 2 years? I guess the answer would be a lot of the countries in Europe would still be in lockdown. And it actually would probably be the same with this country. I mean, if we would not have had access to the innovation that has been brought to the market in an incredible way over the last year, most of us would still be in lockdown, knowing that we are still in maybe the fourth wave. If we would have to withstand this without the massive access to vaccination, the countries would have been locked down throughout Europe and throughout the world. And President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, talked about the role we play in the world. European Union has exported 1 billion vaccines over the last months. Of those 1 billion vaccines that have been exported to the world, 700 million have been produced in Belgium. So 7 out of 10 of what has been exported throughout Europe comes from Belgium. And we've always played the role that we should play. And that is the role of being an advocate for free trade and being an advocate for collaboration. And this has not been easy. I think a lot of you know that over the past months, there has been tremendous pressure. Tremendous pressure to talk about export bans. Tremendous pressure to say, well, but if you're not helping on that side, then we will not be helping on our side either. From the Belgian side, we have always resisted this. We have always been very clear that the best way to help humanity is with free trade. And we have done everything to take away anything that would hamper the free flow of goods. And it has not been easy. And we've had some discussion with our American friends, which have not always been easy. And I would say that if even those hamperings of free trade that did happen, if we would not have had them, we would have been able to help even more people. Things happened the way they happened, but it's an important message. Because, Sonia, you said we should not say too often that we're a small country. Okay, let's say we are a medium-sized country. But the fact that we are not a big country with a big home market, and the fact that we are an open economy is, I believe, one of our key assets. If we have attracted, over the last decade, so much investment, and a lot of you operate in a multinational context, you invested here not because of our home market. You invested here because we're good. You came here because we have the best people, because we have a stable environment, because we have a fiscal policy that is conductive. You have invested here because this was the right place to invest. And also because knowing that we are an open economy and that we believe in free trade, that we have a habit of being very accessible to you. When you need us, we are there. but we're not sitting on your board. We're not trying to influence the things that you are doing here. We know that we need to be helpful, but we also know that we need to take a distance. And I think that balance is a delicate balance. The ones of you who are active in other places of the world know that this is not always the case, and that in periods of crisis, very often national governments have a tendency to be quite intrusive. I don't think we've ever had that tendency in Belgium, and we have no ambition whatsoever to do that. Now, I think that COVID has learned us a few things. And this really, I think, is what is the stepping stone on which this whole project is being based. First element is that a lot of industries have become way more geopolitical, and healthcare is one of them. As I said before, if you invested here, you came here because we're good. I hope that those will still remain the predominant rules in the game, but I'm not so sure. A lot of other countries have seen what we have. A lot of other countries have seen that having access to healthcare is something which is important. It brings a lot of wealth. It also gives access, of course, to very important technology. And some players in the world are starting to use it way more geopolitical than before. And we should not be naive. If we want to continue attracting investment in Europe, and especially in Belgium, we also need to be a player in the geopolitical game. And so if at some point the rules of the game change, we need to be sure that we are there. Now, how do you answer that? One of the answers, obviously, is the proximity and the access that you have to government. I think we've been quite good at that, but we will continue going further in that. I think a second element is the experience that we have in the private sector, but also in the public sector. Bringing that together, I think, makes us quite unique, but also leveraging something else we have. I mean, if this industry is becoming more geopolitical, that means that proximity to those places where decisions are being made is actually quite an asset. Now, we have Belgium. Hello, Mr. Piot. We have Belgium, but we also have Brussels. And honestly, there is not that many places in the world where we have such a high concentration of decision power. I think there is maybe 5, 6 cities in the world. We are at the level of Beijing. We are at the level of Washington, D.C., New York. We are at the level of Moscow. There is not that many places in the world where so much decision power is together, and where actually you have a mix of private knowledge in healthcare, but also decision power on the political and on the private political level. Making that junction definitely is an opportunity and is something where we have quite an important role to play. Second element, I think, is that in the world of today, speed is more important than size. And we've seen that in the COVID crisis. And I think that the COVID crisis has really raised the bar. And raised the bar in quite a dramatic way. I mean, the ones of you who are active in vaccines, if we would have told you 5 years ago that in a space of a year between discovering what happens and having a vaccine which is tested and ready to be produced in hundreds of millions of doses, I think most of you would have barked and would have said, never, ever that this will happen. We've shown now that it is possible. And we've shown that it is possible because it was necessary. Now, this is going to be the standard at which we will be held. Hopefully in the future, not for something which is as dramatic as COVID-19, but in other things that will happen, the general public will say, well, you did it with COVID. Why would you do this for X, Y, Z? So what we have shown in our working together with all these different actors has been a showcase which will really be the ones which we will be compared with. And I think that the collaboration which we have with the industry, with the European Commission, and with all the different public instances in Belgium is a very important one. And it brings me to collaboration, and Sonia, I think you talked about co-creation, and I believe that is the right thing. In the world of today, there is not one person, and I would say not even one country, who knows that they will be able to tackle the challenges which they see ahead. I think all of us know that we can only do it if we work together, and that the ones who are the most successful today is not the ones who have the brilliant idea. It's the ones who are actually able to pull together all the expertise and bring the best out of what everyone is doing around them. And I think that we have shown over the last years what we are capable in Belgium. Let me conclude with one last element, and that is on why are we doing this? I mean, we're doing this obviously because we believe that we have something great, and because we believe that the thing which is great today should be great in 10 years and in 20 years, because we believe that it is a tremendous source of prosperity in Belgium. But it's broader than that, because you might say, well, you are competing with other countries. Yes, of course we are competing with other countries, but the real competition is not other countries. The real competition is new pathogens, it's new diseases. I mean, that's the enemy. The enemy is not other countries. The enemy is trying to fight things which are hampering our health. And this is what it really is about. And this, I think, is where Belgium really wants to play a role. In the end, this is about a better life, a life with more freedom. And I think we enjoy our freedom at the moment that we saw that it went away. But in the end, what this project is about humanity. And it's about creating a better future. And I think that over the last years, this is something that we've lost a bit in the Western world, is the belief that tomorrow will be better than yesterday. I know that part of the general public is doubting and has lost a bit the element of believing in progress, believing in prosperity. The moment we lose that, we are losing a lot. And I think this industry can play a very important role in bringing that back in our society, the belief that tomorrow will be better than today, and that it is a human thing, and that we can do it here if we bring people together. And that really, for me, is the core of this project, is bringing people together and be the place where innovation takes place for a better life for all of us. Thank you, and best of luck in the next years.
Well, Mr. Prime Minister, I have to admit it's impossible to destabilize you, even with the cell phone of Mr. Piot or a video message that we still have to see. Ladies and gentlemen, something tells me that the Federal Health Minister will be glad to find out that the final words are his. Please watch with me, Frank van den Broeke.
Dear President of the European Commission, dear Alexander, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. A few months ago, the federal government started a strategic exercise to provide our country with a long-term vision for its biopharmaceutical ecosystem. That exercise took place in partnership with all actors in the sector. I cannot be with you this morning, but I deem it important to send you this message, as I am convinced that the work we have initiated together is a step in the right direction for all stakeholders, for care providers, and for patients. A lot has already been said this morning. As the coordinator of the Clinical Trials Working Group, I would like to focus first on our country's participation in clinical trials, and second on a topic that is of direct interest to you, our preparation of a pact with the pharmaceutical industry. As far as clinical trials are concerned, my main priority is to make sure that our country is ready to implement the European Clinical Trial Regulation, the CTR. And I can assure you that all the actors involved join forces. The Federal Agency for Medicines and Health Products, the board of the Federal Public Service for Public Health, and the ethics committees are working closely together, both with each other and with the academic and commercial sponsors, the Centers for Clinical Trials, and patient organizations, so that they can be ready in time. Today, most efforts are focusing on the implementation of the CTR pilots, the training on the use of the Clinical Trial Information System, the CTIS, the preparation of the Commission's delegated act on safety assessment and the controls that will be carried out by the European Commission once the CTR has been implemented. Besides, initiatives are being taken to ensure that Belgium remains future-proof, which means that we can continue to invest in innovative, complex design studies and in digitalization, while focusing on phase 1 studies and vaccine trials. This last point is also in line with the further development of spearhead vaccines. In addition, we focus on the implementation of the medical device regulation and the in vitro diagnostics regulation, as well as decentralized studies and digitalization. In this regard, I'm also examining the feasibility of allowing academic and commercial sponsors to seek national scientific advice from the Federal Agency for Medicines and Health Products before a clinical trial begins, with fee exemptions or reductions of fees in certain cases. Finally, Belgium intends to participate not only in the European EU4Health projects on clinical trials, but also in the joint action for accelerated evaluation of COVID-19 medicines and in the joint action for safety. Let me then say a few words about the pharmaceutical pact on which we're working. The negotiations to prepare this pact are still ongoing. They take time because we have been committed to a broad consultation with all stakeholders. Patient organizations, for instance, have also had the opportunity to provide their input, and I think that the role of the patient has become essential in these discussions, just as in our work has been presented and debated today. At this very moment, we are drafting the texts and the general framework. So I won't be able to go into any detail about any specific measures at this moment. However, there are several key points in our government's agreement of September last year that give, I think, a very clear indication of the way to go. Among the topics covered are innovation, accessibility for patients, efficiency, the ethical dimension, as well, obviously, the budgetary responsibility of the sector. The efforts of our services and administrations in terms of good governance and synergies will also be pursued. Cooperation with stakeholders, whether they are social stakeholders, national actors or international actors, will be integrated into the preparation of this pharmaceutical pact. I can assure you, in addition, that there is a structural consultation with the sector on all the files that are on the table. I know you're looking forward to finding out what will be exactly in this pharmaceutical pact. I can tell you that we're working hard on it. I will come back to you as soon as it is ready. Meanwhile, I thank you for your attention and I wish you much success.
I understand that he cannot go into further details on this pharmaceutical pact, but perhaps the Prime Minister can during the networking moment. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, time for the signing moment, official signing moment. This room is too small to do that, so may I ask first for the press to leave the room, then afterwards the audience, and all the main participants and stakeholders, please stay with me for a moment. We go last. Thank you very much. You can go to the atrium. Het was nog een beetje grappig. Ik heb er maar een kwinkslag aan gegeven.